Hey everybody, it's Travis speaking. I got a comment on my YouTube channel not too long ago with a request to demystify railings. So that's what we're going to take a look at today, but because there's so many parameters and nested families involved in railings themselves, I'm going to break it up into a couple parts. We're going to take a look at top railings in this particular video, and then hopefully I can get to the railing section as well soon enough. So you can see here I've got a couple staircases, and I always find it's best if you're testing these things out to get a couple views active. So right now you can see I've got these two staircases in plan, and I've got a couple sections drawn through them so we can take a look at both orthographic views. So I'm going to switch over to this one right here, this guy. So I'm just going to click on that section arrow and let's start taking a look. So if I want to access the top railing of a handrail type, what I'm going to do is hover over that top railing and hit the tab key until I see it glow blue. When I see it in blue, I can see that I've got that selected. Right now, because this handrail is pinned, I wasn't able to make any changes. So you can see how that goes from gray to black when you unpin it. So right now this top rail is rectangular type 2 by 2 inch. So if I come in here and I hit edit type, I get this dialog box that lets me make some changes. So the first order of business is to see what's your default join type. And this can be a little bit confusing relative to your profile selected. So if you change that from miter, which we have in place right now, we've got these sharp angles. If we change that to fillet, you'll notice that the fillet radius becomes, well, you can actually access it now. So right now there's a 4-inch radius on that. I'm just going to hit apply and see what happens. It says cannot create specified fillet for rail joints. Please try a different value. Okay, I'm just going to hit OK and see what happens. You'll notice that despite that error, I still get some curvature here on the joints where it goes from an angled piece of pipe into a vertical piece connecting, and then up here at the post it curves back around. So this is essentially what it's getting at here. If I change this to a 2, I might get another error relative to the profile. So if I hit apply there, again it's saying cannot create the continuous rail geometry. So a lot of times what happens is people go ahead and they do that and they're unable to see what actually happens. So they just skip ahead, or they close it down, or they just get frustrated. I'm just going to try another one here. I'm going to put in 6 inches there and see what happens. And again, another error message. If I skip through these, you can see that there's 3 of them. So I hit OK, but I still get that 6-inch fillet applied to where some of these rails change. Okay, so you can tinker with that until you get the right outcome. I just wanted to kind of express what happens with those options. I'm going to go back and change this to miter and let that do what it does by default. Your hand clearance essentially is the space between the host. So if I change this right now, it's saying -1, so that means it's bringing it 1 inch inside of the stringer. So if I want it to be right on top of the stringer, then I'll just change that to 0, and that's that. You can hit apply. You won't see that really change too much in this section, but where it does change, you can see is the transition at the landing. So you can put that back to say 1, and it would move it 1 inch outside of the stringer. So bear in mind, minus and positive values do actually make a difference. Okay, so your profile, that's pretty straightforward. If we change this from rectangular handrail to 2 inch by 2 inch to 2 inch by 3 inch and hit apply, then we should see, nope, we're not seeing any difference because that dimension isn't shown. But let me just change this to an elliptical, and then we'll see that difference there. So now you can see it cut in section. Okay, so let it do its thinking. Now bear in mind, if this top handrail or top rail is called rectangular 2 inch by 2 inch, and I go and change that to elliptical handrail profile, then that's a little bit misleading for this rail type. So you might want to rename it after you get the desired outcome. So I'll just change that back to rectangular handrail 2 by 2, and Then the last thing here is a transition, the gooseneck. So let me just hit OK. I'm going to zoom into this a little bit closer and just move that out to the side so we can see this. Let's toggle on the thick lines and change this to shaded, so get a little bit better view of this, what happens. So again, I'm going to come over to the rail, hit tab to get my top rail, make sure that it's actually the type that I was working on before, and then I'll hit edit type again. And now I'm just going to change this transitions from gooseneck to none, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I'm getting a warning here. It's saying the rail is not continuous. That's pretty obvious because we're taking out the transitions. And it says breaks in the rail usually occur at sharply angled transitions, i.e. a 90-degree. So let's just hit OK and see what happens. So now that I've taken that out, all those connecting pieces are no longer in there, and each one of these tubes just ends where the post would be, essentially. So if you take a look right in here, you can see that the end point of that rail is at the center point of this post. Okay, I've made these posts just a little bit different, a little bit thicker than the balusters, so you can see that. So bear in mind, when you change your extension style, that's where it's going to extend from. Okay, so the material is pretty self-explanatory. You can come in here and you can modify that. You could call this really whatever you want. So I'm just going to ignore that for the time. Well, I don't want acoustic ceiling. Let's just call it aluminum for the time being. Okay, so that should change up a little bit if I hit apply, a little bit different shade there. Now the extension style, bear in mind you have two of these. You've got a beginning at the bottom and then an end at the top. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom out again so we can see what happens with these two. I've already got an extension style up here at the top and nothing at the beginning. So if I come back in and change that again, let's explore this a little bit. Extension style at the beginning, you can see it says none. So I have some options here. I could say to floor and hit apply, but I don't have any length applied to this. So if I say plus tread depth and hit apply, you'll notice that it gives me the tread depth and it returns it down to the floor. And I already have terminations in here. You can see I've got this termination wood rectangular block. This is another nested family inside the top rail type. If I wanted something a little bit different, I could go in and create a new one and then load that into this project, and I'd be able to put that in as well. Maybe you want like a small concrete upstand or something to that effect. You could do that. But let's just go back here. If I change this length to another foot and hit apply, you'll see that it applies a horizontal piece and it keeps that extension down to the floor. So if I change that to post and hit apply, you'll see that it leaves the horizontal member and it returns it back to the post. So at the beginning and bottom termination for a post extension style, I probably don't want this termination wood rectangular, so I change that to none and then leave that as is. You can change the tread depth back here and then it'll go directly to the post. Okay, so you probably want to actually make that extension a little bit more, so maybe say another 4 inches, and I think it might be 13 by code, but I'm not sure. Anyway, now that's pretty much what I think we'd want. Maybe, like I said, 13, and there you go. So that's the bottom extension with this profile in place. Now we could take a look at the top extension style. Right now you can see that it's floor and it's using a length of 6. If I had a wall in here, say I had a landing, or sorry, not a landing, but at the top level there was a wall into a corridor, you can change that from floor or post, which we've already explored, to wall. And you wouldn't want that to be 6 inches. That wouldn't give you much room to get past that stair. So let's just say at the end of this stair we have another 5'6", and you'll see that it extends the tube all the way to that wall. Okay, so identity data, this is stuff once you get a little bit further along the line, you could put in a type image, keynotes, model numbers or numbers, manufacturers, all that good stuff, and this just helps you along with your scheduling. But I didn't really want to focus on that. What I wanted to focus on was how you create these and get these set up, because it can be a little bit confusing, especially at the top here with these default joins if you don't have these the profile set up to match your default join, and it can get a little confusing. Okay, so we can just change this back to gooseneck, and there we go. We have the railing that we're actually trying to achieve. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's top railings. Just bear in mind that when you want to access these individual from the railing type itself, you do have to hover over it and hit the tab key to get that specific family. Okay, so check back soon. We're going to take a look at the actual railing types, placing balusters and posts, and look at some of the details in there, because again, there's a lot of parameters relative to the handrail type that kind of need a little bit of demystification as well. So thanks for watching. Check back soon, and if you have any comments or questions, just leave them in the comment box below and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you. Bye now.